Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the top 100 movies from the 1990s countdown. This time we're diving into another great mix of mind-bending thrillers, time-twisting action, cult classics, and iconic slasher moments that I think defined the decade of just bold storytelling and unforgettable characters that the cinema brought us. Today we're diving into the movies that I have ranked 60 through 51, from jaw-dropping shootouts and high-stakes missions to the awkward dance of youth and razor-sharp Hollywood satire. These films are packed with attitude, style, and heavy doses of 90s nostalgia, so whether you're here for the wisecracks, the drama, the laughs, or the many "how did that just happen" moments, this batch delivers endless flair and relentless fury. Natural Born Killers claimed that the media made them superstars as Woody Harrelson and Juliette Lewis go full psychopathic sweethearts in Oliver Stone's hallucinogenic crime spree, where murder becomes media spectacle and love means never having to say you're sorry unless it's on live television. Now, some films take you on a journey. Natural Born Killers grabs you by the throat and shoves you into a psychedelic meat grinder. Directed by Oliver Stone with an original story from Quentin Tarantino, Natural Born Killers was a media critique shot out of a cannon. Woody Harrelson and Juliette Lewis play Mickey and Mallory. They're America's most charmingly unhinged couple who leave a trail of corpses and fanboys in their wake, all the while the press is eating it up like it's Super Bowl Sunday. Harrelson, previously known for being the lovable goof on Cheers, leans all the way into the crazy in this performance, while Lewis radiates equal parts menace and mall goth energy. It's as if Bonnie and Clyde had a baby with Beavis and Butthead, and that baby did mushrooms and watched cable news 24/7. Stone directs this one like he's possessed by three different music video directors all at the same time. He's switching film stocks and angles and editing styles with zero warning, and that's kind of the point. When it came out, the movie was both a lightning rod and a cult classic in waiting. Critics argued over whether it was a brilliant commentary or just really good at glamorizing violence. Either way, it helped ignite a decade of just increasingly meta-media critiques, from Fight Club to American Psycho. Natural Born Killers didn't just blur the line between infamy and fame, it chopped it into bits and aired it on primetime, and for better or worse, we've never turned our TVs off since. Jean-Claude Van Damme kicks his way through the space-time continuum in Peter Hyams' sci-fi actioner Time Cop as he polices time travel with high kicks, a high mullet, tight pants, and zero tolerance for time-traveling Wall Street bros. They killed his wife 10 years ago, but there's still time to save her. In the golden age of action sci-fi mullets and split kicks, Time Cop stands proudly as Van Damme's most successful box office outing, proving once and for all that if you give JCVD a time machine and a tragic backstory, that he will absolutely do the splits across your kitchen counter and prevent temporal crime. Time Cop isn't so much a meditation on time travel as much as it is a vehicle for kicking guys into the past and watching them explode. Van Damme here plays this still grieving time enforcement agent. His job is basically to stop other time travelers from messing with history, and he does so using his charming quips and his swift kicks. It's like Looper if Looper had more hair gel and slow motion roundhouse kicks. This movie is filled with so much early 90s techno-noir moodiness that you can practically smell it. The year of its release, we watched this movie all summer at the Second Run Theater and couldn't get enough of it. Ron Silver's a great villain. He's chewing scenery perfectly as the evil senator, future crime lord who thinks money is more important than the space-time continuum. And because it's 1994, there's going to be a subplot involving a dead wife for motivation, which also provides some steamy flashbacks for some tasteful, gratuitous nudity. Yet, for all its dated tech and sci-fi logic gaps wide enough to drive a DeLorean through, Time Cop was a hit. It even got a TV series, a direct-to-video sequel, and it proved Van Damme could handle dramatic stakes and time paradox, all while maintaining perfect hair. In a timeline full of just forgotten action flicks, I think Time Cop remains gloriously stuck in its own moment, proof that sometimes you can go back as long as you're kicking someone through the wormhole before you. Player was a movie that claimed everything you've heard is true, as Tim Robbins plays a slick studio exec dodging death threats, guilt, and bad pitches, and Robert Altman's razor-sharp Hollywood satire where the only thing more dangerous than murder is a box office bomb. Now, if Hollywood had a rear-view mirror, the player would be the thing it pretends not to see. Directed by Robert Altman with a wink and a knife, this razor-sharp satire just skewers the film industry like it's sushi on a studio lot. Tim Robbins stars as a movie executive who greenlights mediocrity for a living. He dodges highbrow screenwriters and, oh yeah, he accidentally murders a guy and then keeps on networking like nothing happened. So basically, it's another day in Los Angeles. This was a movie that I watched many times in college while in writing class. I loved the structure of it. I loved the sharp wit and how effortlessly it crafted the tension. Altman really does turn the camera on Tinseltown here and finds just a snake pit filled with power lunches, empty buzzwords, and executives so afraid of originality they'd rather commit suicide or a homicide than read a script that didn't have Julia Roberts or a happy ending. I think Robbins here is great. This is one of my favorite performances from him. He's just perfectly fit as this morally slippery suit whose biggest concern is whether Bruce Willis will still test well after a murder scene. This film famously opens with just a dazzling several-minute tracking shot that name drops everything from Touch of Evil to Ghost. It's so self-referential you'd think the movie might fold in on itself like a script caught in development hell, but instead it dances on the edge of cynicism with such charm it practically dares you to feel bad for this weasel of a protagonist. The player was a critical darling and an insider's delight, setting the tone for 90s meta movies and self-aware storytelling. It really did walk, so adaptation and entourage and every award season satire could jog behind it in envy, from cameos to the Hollywood name dropping and the pitch meeting from hell. The player is that rare film that roasted the system while playing the game and won. Swingers brought us Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn cruising the neon-lit streets of LA, and Doug Liman's indie bromance about friends chasing gigs, heartbreak, and swing dancing redemption because, baby, you're so money and you don't even know it. Before Jon Favreau was making Disney and Marvel movies and Vince Vaughn was crashing weddings, they were just two broke actors with a camcorder, a dream, and an unhealthy obsession with swing music. Swingers is the quintessential 90s indie bromance, equal parts heartbreak, hilarity, and hipster smooth talk. It's set in a vibrant Los Angeles just as ska and swing music were somehow making a brief cultural comeback. Swingers follows Favreau as an emotionally wrecked comedian who just can't stop talking about his ex, and his friend Vaughn, the human embodiment of a shot of Jagger. He's the cool, fast-talking guy who's overly confident and just unhinged enough, and together they bar hop through heartbreak, clumsy dance moves, and endless "you're so money" affirmations that just became a mantra for a generation of overconfident underachievers, one of them being myself at the time as a senior in high school that just felt, I don't know, oddly inspired by this movie. Swingers was made on a shoestring budget, but it's loaded with quotable dialogue and sharp chemistry and a painfully relatable just look at post-breakup insecurity. It just felt like an inside joke amongst friends, and it's probably because that's kind of what it was, and audiences loved it for exactly that reason. It didn't need a huge plot, just a few good suits, some Rat Pack swagger, and a couple of guys trying and mostly failing to get their groove back. I mean, pop culture, it certainly took notice because overnight, Vegas baby became a catchphrase, lounge revival saw a spike, and every aspiring screenwriter started typing with Jon Favreau's voice in their head. Swingers wasn't just money, it was an indie flick that proved all you needed was a voice, a vibe, and a wingman who believes in you more than you believe in yourself. Houston, we have a problem. Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon, and Bill Paxton launch into space for Apollo 13, Ron Howard's tense true-life tale of NASA's most famous malfunction, a 4-quadrant blockbuster that captured audiences worldwide in the summer of 1995. Here, Ron Howard took one of NASA's most famous near disasters and somehow turned it into one of the most riveting cinematic experiences of the 90s without needing to blow up an asteroid or invent space pirates. With Hanks in the captain's seat and Bacon and Paxton up in orbit, this movie strapped audiences into a space capsule and took them on a ride. By now, Houston, we have a problem is so iconic it might as well be printed on every printer error message, but in 1995, it landed like a punch to the chest, delivered by Hanks with the calm of a man who's both in mortal danger and just knows how to handle it because he's Tom Hanks. Now, this was just one of those movies that entire families would gather at the multiplex to go see, mine being one of them. We all loved it. There's no villain here, no alien threat, just oxygen tanks exploding and just the terrifying fragility of being like 200,000 miles from home and a glorified soda can. Ed Harris, forever in his white vest, just gives the most intense headset performance ever recorded, and Apollo 13 doesn't embellish. It respects the real events, right down to the NASA level nerdy details, and somehow that makes it all the more thrilling. Apollo 13 wasn't just a box office hit, it was an awards darling, an engineering recruitment poster. It made space cool again without needing a single lightsaber, and it gave Hanks another notch on his all-American everyman utility belt. And to me, in a decade full of spectacle, Apollo 13 reminded us that the truth can sometimes be just as cinematic. In the Line of Fire delivered Clint Eastwood's aging Secret Service agent who plays a deadly game of cat and mouse with John Malkovich's whispery assassin and Wolfgang Petersen's taut political thriller because protecting the president never gets old, even if he is. By 1993, Clint Eastwood had pretty much played every grizzled hero imaginable: cowboys, cops, pilots, detectives, endless curmudgeons, but In the Line of Fire is where he would add washed-up Secret Service agent to the resume and somehow still managed to make it feel brand new. Petersen directs this movie with a kind of glossy 90s tension that just makes everything feel like it's a ticking clock. I think this movie gave Eastwood easily his juiciest cat and mouse game in years, opposite none other than a fantastic John Malkovich who's whispering threats like a deranged ASMR YouTuber. Eastwood plays this Secret Service agent haunted by the one time he failed to take a bullet for JFK, no less. So now older, grumpier, and perpetually squinting, he's determined to not let history repeat itself when Malkovich arrives on the scene. He's equal parts sadistic and suave. He starts taunting Eastwood with plans of assassinating the current president. So it's kind of like Dirty Harry went corporate. This movie serves up Cold War paranoia as well as splashes of modern thriller sleekness, and it has a surprising amount of charm to it as well. And I think that's really thanks to Eastwood's unlikely subplot with Rene Russo, which somehow works even though Clint is roughly the age of the Lincoln Memorial, and despite also being young at the time, maybe 15 or 16 when I caught this movie on cable, like it really did pull me in, even though I didn't really understand all the complexities of it. I would always look for it later and always sit down and watch it and pull something new from it. Malkovich is great. He turns in one of the most gloriously creepy performances of the decade, crafting a villain who's smart, he's calm and capable. In the Line of Fire was a commercial hit. It proved that Eastwood could still headline an action thriller without needing to dodge bullets. He could do so with simple threats, phone calls, and thoughts of his own retirement. It's a film about redemption, legacy, and never underestimating a guy with a badge, a grudge, and a very dramatic telephone voice. Richard Linklater takes us back to 1976 and Dazed and Confused with a cast featuring future stars such as Matthew McConaughey and Ben Affleck, where the last day of school means cruising, hazing, and deep philosophical musings like, alright, alright, alright. To me, Dazed and Confused is less of a movie and much more of a mood. It's the cinematic equivalent of the smell of spilt beer and cherry Slurpee wafting through the summer air of 1976. It's set over the course of one hazy night. This is the ultimate hangout movie where nothing happens, yet somehow everything happens. If high school was ever boring, weird, exciting, painful, or hilarious, or all of the above, this movie gets it. It's got a young, still innocent Ben Affleck with a paddle, and of course, Matthew McConaughey's birth of a catchphrase performance as Wooderson, the sleazy older guy who stuck around high school just long enough to become a legend. Alright, alright, alright. It wasn't just a line, it was a lifestyle, one that McConaughey is still kind of riding like a 70s Chevelle through a Sonic drive-in. I think Linklater's genius here in the direction is just by letting the characters breathe. There's no plot checklist, no big climax, just a perfectly observed swirl of keggers, philosophical stoners, bleacher flirting, and awkward teenage power plays. The camera just kind of floats from click to click like a curious party guest, kind of eavesdropping on the micro dramas of growing up. And over the time, this film's impact has really only grown. It was a bomb at the box office, but on home video and a cable, it certainly did find its people. It's now a pop culture touchstone, a rite of passage, and just a stylish blueprint for every One Crazy Night movie that would follow. Dazed and Confused didn't just capture the 70s, it nailed that universal feeling of being 17 years old, stuck between a bong hit and a future you can't see. It's slow, it's meandering, it's full of soul, and just kind of cool as hell. Tombstone proclaimed justice was coming. Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp, Val Kilmer steals the show as Doc Holliday, and George P. Cosmatos delivers an operatic western where the mustaches are thick, the one-liners are deadly, and vengeance always rides into town on horseback. Now, admittedly, I'm not a huge fan of westerns, but Tombstone does hit different. Once it gets going and starts, it does not stop until every mustache has been twitched, every outlaw has been shot, and every line has been etched into the granite of quotable movie history. George P. Cosmatos stunt directed this one for Kurt Russell, who really delivers a western so operatic and so quotable and so testosterone-drenched it feels like the OK Corral being sponsored by Marlboro and shot in Super Scope. Russell delivers one of his most iconic roles, growling and strutting endlessly as Wyatt Earp, a lawman, family man, mustache model. He brings law and order to a town overrun by maniacs called the Cowboys. But let's be honest, this movie belongs to Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday. He's drunk, he's dying, and downright Shakespearean. The cast around them is just stacked like a saloon poker table. Sam Elliott and Bill Paxton as Earp brothers, Powers Booth and Michael Bain as villainous scowl machines, and a soundtrack that practically is able to walk into the room before the characters do. Now, Tombstone wasn't the only Earp movie in the 90s. Costner's 3-hour opus rode in a year later as well, but to me, this one is the clear winner. It's faster, it's way more fun. It became almost an immediate cult classic and remains that go-to Western for people who only kind of like Westerns but really love one-liners, flashy gunfights, and slow motion. It's a cross between True Grit and Young Guns, a rare modern Western that doesn't just respect the mythos, it lets it rip with a 6-shooter in each hand with a bloody grin on its face. Neve Neve Campbell leads a cast of 90s teens with way too much meta-knowledge in Wes Craven's slasher revival's Scream, where the killer loves horror movies almost as much as murder. Don't answer the phone, don't open the door, and don't try to escape the imprint this movie left on 90s cinema. By 1996, slasher films were on life support until Scream came along with its black cloak, a voice changer, and a terrifying new rulebook to change the game. Scream didn't just revive the genre, it dissected it, mocked it, then made it frighteningly fun again, with Neve Campbell as the vulnerable yet resilient final girl Sidney Prescott, and just a cast of 90s TV royalty: Courtney Cox, David Arquette, Rose McGowan, Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard. It was like watching the TRL lineup just getting brutally and stylishly murdered, and yet it was also kind of hilarious along the way. The characters knew the horror movie rules: don't have sex, don't say I'll be right back, never trust the boyfriend, and yet they still got picked off one by one like a blockbuster rental checklist. Ghostface wasn't just a masked killer, but instead a pop culture icon, as likely to quote Halloween as he was to gut you. This movie kind of played like a mixtape of slasher history, with Craven cleverly remixing his own legacy. I mean, who else would kill off Drew Barrymore in the first 10 minutes and somehow make it more fun in doing so? I mean, impact was seismic. Scream made horror cool again. It spawned sequels, knockoffs, spoofs, and a generation of genre fans who learned to never answer the phone without checking the caller ID first. It was bloody, witty, self-aware, and still genuinely scary as well. This movie came out my senior year. We all watched it so many times at each other's houses. It was really more than a revival. Scream just became that blueprint for modern horror, with meta logic, killer twists, and an attitude that said, yes, we know what you did last summer, we're going to make fun of it, and then stab it in the face. In The Last Boy Scout, Bruce Willis grumbles, Damon Wayans quips, and Tony Scott stylizes everything in sight in a gritty buddy cop actioner with football, foul mouths, and more one-liners than a Schwarzenegger highlight reel. Now, if you ever wondered what would happen if Bruce Willis and Damon Wayans teamed up to chew bubblegum, shoot bad guys, and exchange the snarkiest one-liners this side of the 90s, The Last Boy Scout has your answer, except they forgot the bubblegum. Directed by Tony Scott at the peak of his hyper-stylized, neon-lit action phase, this movie is like Die Hard meets Friday Night Lights with a mouthful of sarcasm and a whole lot of attitude. Willis plays this down-and-out private investigator that's got a mouth sharper than his gun, and Damon Wayans is a disgraced former football star with a chip on his shoulder the size of a linebacker, and together they're going to dive headfirst into a conspiracy involving crooked politicians and shady sports agents and enough dirty money to make Wall Street blush. This is a cocktail of sports and action and comedy with more plot twists that you can throw a football through. The tagline of this movie is "the goal is to survive," and it's not just a slogan, it's a spoiler warning, because in this movie things explode, punches fly, dialogue zings with the kind of wisecracking energy only a Willis-Wayans combo could deliver without ever missing a beat, because this movie does thrive on their awkward, intense energy with each other, and with Tony Scott's signature fast cuts and vibrant colors, it just makes everything feel like a live wire. And sure, The Last Boy Scout didn't reinvent the wheel, but it did polish it up with more than enough grit and humor to make it spin fast and roll straight. This is a 90s action gem that's rough around the edges, unapologetically loud, and somehow still manages to have a little bit of heart underneath all the chaos. And that's it for today, guys. 10 more movies that reminded me at least why the 90s were such a crazy and creative playground for filmmakers, whether it was bending time, dissecting Hollywood's dark side, or proving that one-liners and mullets never go out of style. These movies left a mark on me, and I think they still can be felt to this day. So the next time someone says the 90s were just about grunge and boy bands, hit them with this list and watch their jaw drop. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell, because the countdown isn't over yet. Stay tuned for more explosive, iconic, and sometimes downright weird movies as we keep climbing to the top of this 100 movies from the 90s list.
This is Jack Burton in the